Hey everybody, glad to be back again today with just another, I don't know, bit of business wisdom, maybe life wisdom. I don't know. I've got a gray enough beard. I probably have some good idea about something. But I got this really interesting thing came out of yesterday's discussion about sometimes CEOs ought to stick to CEO stuff because I had found myself doing a lot of not CEO kind of things, and then hurt myself really bad. So today I'm really thinking about it. It got me thinking, more deeply about this idea of what I'm going to call do the thing. Okay, so there's something I know you have something in your life right now that you're not doing because you're not doing it. Like it's a big thing, or it could even be a little thing, but it's something you always wanted. It's something you want. You've thought about, you've intended, you've meant to, and it just doesn't happen. And it just doesn't happen. So I'm going to talk about doing the thing. And, I think there's plenty of things that maybe it's just not, you're not that motivated. Like I have a very large to be read pile of books. Like every time I go to a writer's conference, I pick up books for my new friends and whatnot. And that I may never actually do the thing. I may never get through the whole to be read pile because I grab books at a faster rate than I can consume them. So that's maybe a different thing. That's a consumerism thing. Maybe need to look into that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that thing that, oh, I'm going to get in shape, or I'm going to start my diet, or I'm going to write my contract for my books. Like things that you're just not doing. And so as I think about it, there's really three things. And, I was cybersecurity professional for a long time. I don't have my tinfoil hat handy, but if I did, I'd put it on just to show that I have one for real. And we talked a lot about fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? There was a lot of stuff in the security marketing space that was all about FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But, if you're trying to do a thing like, oh, I want to write a book, and that comes to me a lot. I have a lot of people asking me how they can write a book, or how did I write my books, or how did I get, all these things. And in the end, it's you just do the thing, right? So if you're going to write a book, you write a book. You sit down and write a book. And it was actually really cool. I had a friend of mine come up to me and said, "You know what? I really appreciate your encouragement. I'm writing a book," and he's actually been contracted by the For Dummies people to write a book, and he's like deep in it and talking about how he's got to get up early and all this before he goes to work to do his writing. But like he always wanted to write a book, and he is an expert in his field, and the Dummies people want him to write his book, so it's great, right? That's the thing. He's doing the thing. Okay, but what's keeping you stuck? Is it fear? And I think the fear part of this is really, there are a lot of different fears out there. Fear of failure, fear of success, maybe. Like, what if I do this and I lose control, right? Like, I think that's that plays into the uncertainty side too, of what's going to happen. I don't know. But fear can also just be like innate stuff, like if you had a bad traumatic childhood, you may have a fear of doing anything because your parents, would be upset with you or something like that. Like it's not uncertain to you. You're afraid that, if I jump out of this airplane, you have a certain fear of just, falling, how hard it might be when you land, right? You might actually have a pretty good idea what it's like. I've heard that people that jump out of perfectly good airplanes tell you that the second landing's way worse than the first because like the second jump is a lot scarier because you know how hard you hit the ground, right? Like so there is no uncertainty. You're just afraid because you're afraid it's going to hurt. And that can be the case, right? Like especially if you're doing something you've done a million times, but you're finding yourself procrastinating, you're not doing the thing. It's because you know that once you get started, you have to do it, and there's no uncertainty in it. You're afraid of the outcome, right? Like I know that there was a period of time where it's kind of like I didn't want to get started running because once I started I had kind of had to finish the thing, and it just I was afraid of the work of finishing, but I figured it out at the time. So anyway, fear is the first thing when maybe you're afraid. And so how do you deal with afraid? I think you just have to name it. You have to say, I'm afraid of this outcome. I'm afraid of these consequences. I'm afraid of whatever. And write it down and then talk about it, right? Like so if there's a thing you want to do and you know that the reason you're not doing it is you're afraid of the outcome, but you should do it. It's like a good thing. Like you should move forward. Take time, write down, what am I afraid of? What is the fear? Right. So I mentioned on Saturday I was procrastinating writing this contract. I'm afraid I'm not writing a good contract. I've never written a contract for a book before, and what I've got to do, the way I'm working with this other publisher that's going to improve the quality of what I've got, you know, I'm afraid I'm ripping myself off in the long run. Like I'm afraid because I just haven't done it before. I don't know what I don't know. And so I'm afraid, that's one of the things that's keeping me doing it. And the other side is uncertainty. Am I doing this right? And in that uncertainty, I think some of the uncertainty too is I could eliminate that uncertainty, right? Fear, I can write it down, talk about it, work through that with people. Uncertainty is a little trickier because sometimes you just don't know until something happens, what's going to happen. If you're going to put on a big conference or a show or something out in the public, there's a lot of uncertainty whether anybody's going to show up. And so you've got to work through that and say, these are my known unknowns. Like, I don't know how popular this event is or this thing might be. And again, if you just take some time to write it down and articulate to somebody else, this is what I'm afraid of. And then put the fear and the uncertainty and say, ask yourself the question, well, what's the worst that could happen? In this situation, what's the worst that could happen? And then as you do that, like, is it a permanent worse? Right. So like one of the things that I'm thinking about with this book contract is, well, if I set it for 7 years, it's not a permanent problem. Um, you know, uh, it's the idea between sort of walls and doors, right? If you build a wall, it's very difficult to cut a hole and put a new wall. And if the door you can go in and out of, right? And so when you start thinking about this uncertainty, one of the things you can do is determine, is this a door or a wall? And if it's a wall, what what are the mitigations for that? It's not going to be movable, it's going to be stuck. Can I live with that? Right. And it may be the case that after you really think about that uncertainty and you can't mitigate it and you can't eliminate it, it may be that because you've gone through the work of trying to eliminate and mitigate the uncertainty, you might have created the certainty you need to just say no. It's entirely possible that you're not really supposed to do the thing because you just hadn't thought through it enough, and now you've eliminated the uncertainty. But eliminating uncertainty is a huge thing of do the thing. But then the other question is it possible to completely eliminate the uncertainty for this thing at this time? And if it's not, then it's time to accept it and do the thing. And I think that leads to the last bit, is this doubt, right? So I think there's lots of reasons to have doubt in something you've never done, right? Doubting in yourself is kind of intrinsic human thing. And I think for me, doubt really comes down to talking to other people, right? And I don't mean your cheerleader, right? Like, you've got some people in your life that are going to tell you you're awesome no matter what because they're your friends, they're your family. It's really about talking to completely, like, if you can find a counselor that's a disinterested third party, and I know that's rare to find someone that's going to give you time, but I'll give you an example. There was a period of time where I was planning, like, I had net new content, and I was like, okay, maybe I should go actually take this out in the world and try to publish it with a traditional publisher, right? Because I was going to do the thing. I was going to write this book and I was going to go publish it. But because it was in the middle grade genre, and I like, it's something for that age group, I already knew a ton about marketing and selling to that group because I've been doing it, right? Like, I had, at the time, I had like 5 years of experience in that space and had come to learn that selling to a middle grade audience is actually like the hardest audience in the world because your consumers aren't the buyers. And then on top of it, you've got all these gatekeepers in the place. Like, it's a horrible market to break into as a net new thing to try to be reasonable and helpful. So anyway, long and the short of it is, the where was it going? Long and the short of it is, when it came to this thing, I found an actual agent who I was like, that, we were both happened to be at the same conference, and it was like, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and ask you a question? Right. So again, I had a lot of doubts about my own abilities to move forward and all of that. And I just talked it through. And he was like, okay, well, give me some stats. And so I started giving him numbers on my sell through and my business and blah blah blah. And he was like, look, nobody's going to do any better than you are in this space because it's a hard market. And that completely eliminated the doubt. It was like, okay, I am doing what I'm doing. I got disinterested third party. I got objective data. And that for me is probably the biggest thing. If there's something that you're not doing, right? And you think I ought to go do this, I ought to do the thing, then what doubt is holding you back, right? Is it fear? Is it uncertainty? Is it doubt? What of these three things is holding you back? And work to eliminate it. Like move your uncertainty to certainty. Move your doubt into conviction and move forward. And I think as I close this out, I think the real thing that I think is important as a lesson is that as you go through this process of, well, should I really do this? Should I move along? I don't know that many people that stepped forward to do the big thing they were planning to do, right? Like I go back to this, write the book. Okay. That weren't glad they did it, even though it didn't maybe turn out as well as they wanted. Okay. So I'll give you like, here's some raw reality. So if the thing you're not doing, then I'm telling you now, go do the thing. If the thing you're not doing is I'm not writing a book, let's just get really real about that. If you take the time to write a book, and your mileage may vary. I write about 1,000 words an hour when I'm having a good hour, and so a 25,000 word book is going to take me 25 hours. A 60,000 word book is going to take me 60 hours. I'm going to spend that amount of time on this thing. First question you got to ask yourself is, well, what else were you going to do with the time? Right? Like, I don't think you need, if you take, so let's say 60,000 words, that's a pretty decent sized novel, right? 60,000 words. So you're going to give up 60,000 or 60 hours of Netflix and chill to have a story you wrote that you can share with, friends, family, somebody in your life. I bet there are people in your family that would much appreciate that to what you would have done with the 60 hours of Netflix and chill. Like it's just 60 hours to have this product. Like it's just hugely satisfying. Even if all you do is print it out and it's on an 11, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and you've got it. That's awesome. You've done a thing. It's great. And there's somebody in your friends and family that will appreciate it and like it. And so that's just it. So you've done that. Now you go say, okay, cool. You push the button on Amazon. So you self-publish the way I did my first book. You know what? You're going to get, on average, you're going to get less than 80 people will buy that book. And it's like your friends and family and inner circle and some people that they know in their circle pick it up. So, worst case scenario, you missed out on 60 hours of Netflix and chill. And now 60 other, you've taken and now 61 hours, because it takes about an hour to process stuff and put something on Amazon. So you go from 60 hours and no Netflix and chill to 61 hours of not that. But now, potentially, you've got as many as 80 people in the world who benefited from your story, who looked it over, enjoyed it, liked it. And so now you've gone from 60 hours of Netflix and chill to 60, 80 people that have enjoyed that time that you've been the one that created it, right? And so that all assumes, like, that's just kind of industry averages of all books, all that. That assumes that your story wasn't very good. Like, you just didn't do a very good job. If your story's pretty good, then, and you're in the 80th percentile of stories, well, then you're going to have 400 people enjoy what you would have done with the time to Netflix and chill. Okay? So, in the 80th percentile of books, 400 people. And then, if you're in the top 5%, you've got, 1,000 or more people have picked up your book. So all I'm saying is, if writing a book is your thing, or, making a video game, or whatever it is, just think of it in terms of, would it be better to leave something behind, or put something out there that other people can enjoy, or sitting there doing Netflix and chill? Like, why don't you go do the thing, right? Go do the thing. Anyway, see y'all next time.